Thank you very much all for coming out, giving you a Wednesday night to show the importance of this issue to so many people in the seat of Macnamara. Up on the screen, this beautiful graphic by Ed Hawkins is actually a terrifying picture, an awful and I think disturbing picture. On the left-hand side, we have a stripe representing the temperature in 1910 in Australia, and on the right-hand side, 2017. The cooler the colour, the cooler the temperature, the warmer the colour, the warmer the temperature. Undeniable, the far right is a dark red for the record summer we just had, 2 degrees in Australia above the long-term, above our summer average, which makes it the hottest summer on record in Australia. Often I'm asked, why should Australia care about responding to this challenge? We only represent 1.3% of global emissions. We only represent 0.3% of global population. So that means the average one of us here emits 4 times as much as the average citizen on this planet. So perhaps that should be enough to make some of us consider that we have a moral responsibility, especially as one of the wealthiest nations, to respond here. Now, we may not be the biggest emitter, but we're not far from the top of the list. And in fact, I've got of the 6 countries to the left of this chart, we fall in the under 2% club on the right-hand side, but we are right up there near the top. And in the 2% club, if this button works, represent this grey line here, the fastest growing line. While China, it's a little bit up on last year, but the rest of the world is actually the fastest growing category. And as I went back here, the rest of the world is a larger category than China, almost as big as China and the US together. So we are significant. We play a significant role in that rest of the world category. We came together as nations, 195 nations signed on to the Paris Agreement in 2015. This chart shows how we're going. We're currently 1 degree above the pre-industrial average temperatures. The current commitments to the Paris Agreement have us, the pledges at 3 degrees, the policies are running behind the pledges at a 3.3 degree warming world. Now, 3 degrees some people might think in Melbourne 3 degrees would be kind of nice sometimes in winter to have an extra bit of warmth, but 3 degrees, we've just had a summer, as you know, of rainforests on fire, Tasmania on fire, mass fish kills, and at 2 degrees we see 97% of global coral reefs are dead. So 2 degrees is too far. The consensus is that even 1.5 degrees has too many risks. How's Australia going, though, on our pledges? Well, emissions, 2005, you'll often hear that used as a reference here. That's because it was a really high emissions year. From 2015, when we committed to reducing emissions, all we have done is increase them. The below line is where we have to go. The top line is where we're going. The middle bit is our carbon debt, and it's currently running at 695 million tonnes, and there's nothing on the horizon that shows that we will currently close that gap. The UN Sustainable Development Goal Index shows that on climate action, Australia is currently running dead last, 156th place out of 156 assessed countries. Where do our emissions come from? Electricity is by far the biggest, but it's only 1/3 of our emissions. We talk all the time about the shift to renewables as if that's going to be sufficient, but no, we have to make progress in other sectors. Transport is the next biggest, very closely aligned with stationary energy, which is the energy we use for buildings and heat in industrial processes, basically burning gas and fossil fuels for other energy sources. Transport, we all know, it's not just the road network, but also planes and trains. Agriculture is difficult. Fugitive emissions, but there are some things we can do. Fugitive emissions, that's the fastest growing, and that is the gas that's released from coal mining and gas extraction. That is the fastest growing category in Australia, and will probably, if at the current rate, overtake some of these other ones. So we need to address emissions from across the economy, not just in the electricity sector. Over the last 3 years, since the Emissions Reduction Fund came into into action, our emissions have gone up in the stationary energy sector, the transport sector, and the largest increase in fugitive emissions. This has been offset a little bit by land use and a bit by electricity, but as you can see, all the great work done by everyone who's putting panels on their roof and everyone who's working to build this renewable revolution in Australia is currently being wiped out by the fugitive emissions of the LNG industry. Transition. Well, we can do it, as South Australia has proven. It's really a globally recognised energy system in South Australia. Done an amazing thing where this black section here is coal in their industry. Purple is imports. As the wind, green and solar, yellow at the top, have come in over the last 10 years, you can see with gas in the middle, the wind and solar have pushed the coal out and are starting to push the gas out and are pushing the imports out, where South Australia has become a net energy exporter. But we've got a greater challenge, the rest of the country. As you can see, we're still very, very coal dependent. About 70% of our energy is currently coming from coal, but that's down from 80% a decade ago. In fact, 15 years ago, Australia was 5% renewable. We're now at 20, and in 3 years we'll be at 33. So the boom is accelerating. This chart from the Australian Energy Market Operator shows where they think our energy system will go, our electricity system, where it will go under the current policy settings. So that's neutral policy settings, not doing much at all. And we've got coal about 70%, renewables about 20%, and that will flip over the next 20 years to be the other way around. 20% coal, 70% renewable. That's if we do nothing. And that has us at 50% renewable in 2030 under the no government policy, neutral setting. This transition's happening. It'll probably accelerate as technology becomes cheaper, and it'll also accelerate as we have government policy to push the transition along. So what would a policy set look like to deliver this change? We must sustain the renewable energy boom. It's going fantastically at the moment, but in 3 years we're looking at a cliff. There's a few things up there we should be doing. We need to start phasing out fossil fuels by electrifying everything, transport and heat in industry, and eventually feedstock. And we must grab the opportunities that this transition presents to us. And I'll leave you with this final quote. In a carbon-constrained global economy, Australia is once again the lucky country. We have these boundless plains that are windswept and sun-drenched. Our clean energy resources are the envy of the world. We know we're a lucky country, but are we going to be a clever country? Thank you.